Have you ever wondered why your mind refuses to let go even when your body is exhausted? Why you lie in bed, eyes open in the dark, rehearsing disasters, replaying conversations, doubting everything, even reality itself? You want to sleep, you want to breathe, but something deeper won't let you. It whispers, "Did you lock the door? What if you made a mistake? What if you forgot something and someone gets hurt? What if you're not who you think you are?" This isn't just anxiety. It's not just overthinking. This is a soul in bondage, imprisoned by loops the conscious mind can't silence. And for many women, it begins so early they can't remember a time without it. A thought appears dark, absurd, terrifying, and instead of letting it float away, the body responds like it's life or death. Because once, for her, chaos was life or death. Once, she lived in a house where fear filled the air more than love. Once, she made one small mistake and the punishment came like a storm. Once, she was invisible, so she clung to control like a lifeline. Now she's grown, and still she checks. Still she repeats. Still she ruminates. Because some part of her nervous system has never been told it's over. Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz teaches that OCD is not just about thoughts, it's about the brain's faulty signal system. A loop gets stuck. The brain says, "Warning, something's wrong," even when nothing is. And yet, deep down, it feels true. The soul, like the body, stores what the mind can't explain. And when a woman with OCD lies awake at night, it's not the thought itself that torments her, it's the feeling underneath the thought. "I'm not safe. I'm not pure. I'm not worthy. I don't trust myself." Jung would say this is the shadow, the part of the psyche that holds all the things she was never allowed to express: rage, fear, doubt, desire, vulnerability. She became the good girl, the achiever, the caretaker, the perfect one. And when those forbidden parts of her soul tried to speak, OCD became the gatekeeper, a prison made of rituals and reassurance. Every compulsion, a desperate attempt to avoid feeling something older. What if the obsession isn't the problem, but the protector? What if the thoughts are a distraction from an emotional wound that never had language? Some women live entire lives like this, managing their anxiety with systems, apologizing for their quirks, trying to seem in control. But beneath the rituals lives a grief that hasn't been touched. A fatigue that isn't just physical, it's existential. Because when your soul can't rest, no amount of logic will help. You can try to think your way out of it. You can reason, Google, confess, repeat, but none of it brings peace. Why? Because OCD doesn't need you to understand it. It needs you to meet yourself where you were frozen. Not to fix, but to feel. To let the thoughts come and not respond. To let the fear rise and not obey. To let the loop scream and still choose silence. This is not passivity. This is sacred resistance. Dr. Schwartz calls it relabel, reattribute, refocus, revalue. But in the language of the soul, it might sound like this. This is not me. This is old pain. I do not need to solve this to be worthy. My mind can spin and I can still rest. And that rest begins not in the body, but in the decision to no longer negotiate with fear. She may still lie awake. The thoughts may still come. But something shifts. She stops asking, "How do I get rid of this?" and starts asking, "What part of me needs to be heard?" Because what OCD really means when your soul can't rest is this: a part of you still thinks you're not safe to simply be. And that is where the healing begins. She begins to notice it now, not just the thoughts, but the pattern underneath. It's not random. It never was. The obsession always arrives when something inside her feels uncertain, raw, or unbearably open. After a moment of emotional vulnerability, after pleasure, after stillness, and that's when it hits. The spike. It comes like a needle in the heart, sharp, sudden, horrifying. What if you hurt someone and didn't know? What if that thought means you're evil? What if you forgot something terrible? But this time, she doesn't scramble to fix it. She places a hand gently over her chest and breathes. Because she's starting to understand what Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz has been trying to show all along. The brain lies. And the more we try to prove it wrong, the more power we give it. So she does something radical. She names it. This is just OCD. This is my brain sending a false signal. This is old fear dressed in a new costume. And just like that, a sliver of space opens up the gap between the thought and the reaction. It's small, but it's sacred. The first time she doesn't check the stove, her whole body screams. Not just anxiety terror, but she lets it scream. She walks out the door anyway. She breaks the ritual, and for a moment, she feels like she's dying. And then she doesn't. This is what healing from OCD looks like. Not peace right away, but choosing stillness. It's not that the thoughts disappear. It's that she no longer believes they hold meaning. Dr. Schwartz would say the caudate nucleus, the brain's filter system, is misfiring, sending danger signals that aren't real. And she believes him. But she also knows something deeper. That her OCD didn't begin in the brain. It began in the body. In childhood. In silence. In the moment she learned that mistakes were dangerous and control was survival. Jung called it the complex, a cluster of emotionally charged experiences that live in the unconscious and dictate behavior. And her complex, it's built on guilt. She always feels she's done something wrong even when she hasn't, even when nothing has happened at all. She grew up tiptoeing through rooms, scanning for danger. So now her adult brain scans for danger that isn't there. She was never taught how to feel safe in uncertainty, so her mind tries to erase it. Again and again, until it breaks her. But something new is blooming now. Each time she resists the urge to check, to confess, to seek reassurance, she plants a seed. A new neural path, a new way of being. And at first it feels foreign, wrong, unsafe. But she stays with it. Because she's starting to trust something besides fear, herself. OCD once told her, if you don't fix this, you'll ruin everything. But now she says back, even if I don't fix it, I am still whole. That voice is still new, still soft, but it's hers. And every time she chooses it, the noise grows fainter. The rituals, once sacred, now feel like cages. And freedom, once unthinkable, now feels possible. Because when your soul has been hostage for years, the smallest breath of autonomy feels like revolution. And that's what she's doing now. Not curing her OCD, but reclaiming herself. She begins to feel it before she can explain it. A quiet shift, a loosening of something that once wrapped around her chest like wire. The thoughts still come. Oh yes, they come. But now they arrive like old ghosts instead of gods. And instead of bowing, she notices, names, and lets them pass. She no longer treats the spike of fear as a moral crisis. She treats it as what it is, a brain reflex, a soul memory, a wave. Sometimes it's just background noise now, a flicker at the edge of her vision, a whisper in the back of her mind. What if you forgot to? What if you're dangerous? What if you're not safe? But she doesn't turn toward it anymore. She doesn't grip it like a sword. She lets it rise and fall. Because she knows not every feeling is a prophecy. Not every fear is truth. Not every impulse needs to be obeyed. What once felt like urgent fire now feels like static. This is the gift of detachment, not from life, but from mental tyranny. She still has moments. Days where the rituals creep back in, where her body tenses and the voice grows louder. But now she meets herself with compassion, not punishment. She says, this is a hard day, that's okay. This thought is heavy, but I've carried worse. I can let the loop run and not join the dance. There is no finish line. No perfect version of her waiting at the end of healing. But there is peace. And more than that, there is permission to not get it right, to leave the window unchecked, to walk away from the sink, to not confess, to let the thought remain unanswered and still be at rest. This is the spiritual core of what Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz teaches. That healing from OCD isn't just cognitive. It's sacred. It is the act of separating your identity from your fear. She is not the voice in her head. She is the one hearing it. She is not the ritual. She is the soul underneath it longing for quiet. And now, for the first time, she can sit in that quiet. Not perfectly. Not always, but willingly. She stops needing to explain herself. She stops asking for reassurance. She stops chasing the impossible goal of certainty. And in its place, she finds something softer, stronger, truer, a life that makes space for questions, a body that no longer panics at the unknown, a mind that doesn't need to fix itself every 5 minutes just to feel okay. She feels the ground again, not because it's stable, but because she is. And this steadiness isn't loud. It's not a victory song or a healing montage. It's an exhale, a morning where she forgets to check, a night where she falls asleep without looping, a laugh that isn't rehearsed, a breath that doesn't brace. This is what freedom looks like when you've lived in fear for years. It's not wild. It's gentle. It's unearned. And it's enough. Because when you no longer mistake your thoughts for truth, you begin to hear something else beneath the noise. Yourself. And in that final return, not to perfection, but to presence, she becomes someone new. Not because her OCD is gone, not because her brain never spikes, not because she never feels the urge to check, repeat, or beg for relief, but because she no longer believes that doing so will make her whole. She sees it now for what it is, a scared part of her, asking for love in the only language it knows. The compulsion was never about the stove, the germs, the words, or the order. It was about safety. It was about worthiness. It was about the little girl who thought, if I'm perfect, they'll stop leaving. If I'm careful enough, no one will get hurt. If I keep everything under control, I won't fall apart. But now she knows. She can fall apart and still survive. She can leave the task unfinished and still be enough. She can feel afraid and still move forward. She no longer lives in fear of her own mind. She watches the thoughts rise, but she doesn't follow. She feels the compulsion build like a wave and lets it crash. And what's left in the silence afterward is something she never thought she'd have. Peace without performance. There are days where she forgets to fight, where she laughs too hard, feels too much, or lets the dishes sit. And those are the most sacred days of all because she's not managing herself. She's simply living. She becomes a woman who no longer needs to confess every wrong thought to be pure, who no longer seeks permission to rest, who no longer fears the unknown as if it will devour her. She becomes a woman who trusts herself more than the anxiety that lies, who honors her nervous system but no longer lets it drive, who lets the mess exist not because she's given up, but because she's finally free. She doesn't chase cured. She lives with awareness. She practices non-engagement. She allows the loops to play in the background like an old song that no longer holds meaning. And perhaps the most beautiful part, she starts to love the version of her that once suffered. Not as broken, not as weak, but as brave, because she carried a mind that never let her rest, and still she chose peace. Because she walked through years of compulsions, and still she showed up. Because she broke the cycle, not by force, but by refusal to be ruled by fear any longer. She is the woman who sat with the spike and didn't run, who let the thought scream and didn't move, who heard her brain whisper destruction and answered with silence. And in that silence, she found herself again. She does not chase reassurance now. She does not plead for clarity. She does not fix to feel good enough. She simply is. And the world she once feared, it still spins, but she no longer believes it's hers to hold together. She's not the keeper of all disasters. She's not the goddess of prevention. She's not responsible for controlling what was never hers. She is human. She is flawed. She is whole. And she is finally, beautifully free. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.